Welcome to Business Minds. This week, we introduce you to Mona Lisa Prosper, National Director for the Black Entrepreneur Program at Futurpreneurs.
Okay, so bear with me, a lot of steps.
Perfect.
All of the implications that I had were always related to the advancement of Black communities or the advancement of women.
An energetic manager with experience in law, human resources, and entrepreneurship who tells us the importance of being proactive in order to build a career.
Oh my God, I never had a clear goal in mind because I thought to myself, I don't know what I want to do, but I should figure it out. So I created my first job.
Make sure to subscribe and enter the episode.
Ready to start.
Welcome to Business Minds. Today we're delighted to receive Mona Lisa Prosper, Director of Black Entrepreneurs at Futurpreneur. Mona Lisa, thank you so very much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So first question, can you define your current role in just a few words so our audience can understand better what you do?
Yes, so I'm the National Director for Futurpreneurs Black Entrepreneur Startup Program that was launched in 2021. Okay. So I lead the strategy of development for that program, the team on the ground, and everything around it. And basically, the program gives loans and mentorship. It's always together at Futurpreneur to young Black entrepreneurs aged between 18 to 39 all over Canada. But I'm currently on mat leave, so it's my colleague Tamara Chanwan who is now the director of that program.
Okay, perfect. We'll get back into details a bit later. So the first section is to understand a bit more where our guests come from, what's their background. So my first question is very simple. Where did you grow up and what kind of job were you dreaming to do as a kid?
So I grew up on the south shore of Montreal. I grew up in a city called Boucherville. And I'm the youngest of a family of four. And I had so many different interests, and I still do today. So when I was younger, I wanted to be a doctor. At one point, I wanted to be a writer. And there was also a time where I was like, okay, you know what? I'll be a pediatrician, and on the side, I'll have my own clothing boutique, so a little bit all over the place.
Okay, perfect. And at a young age, were you already exhibiting some entrepreneurial fiber?
You know what? Interestingly enough, not really. I guess I was exhibiting more aptitudes in communications, and I really enjoyed being, quote unquote public speaking. We were not really doing public speaking as a kid, but my mom would make me do different talent shows, and I was super comfortable, not shy at all with people. So it was more so that aspect than the entrepreneurial spirit per se. That came later on.
Okay. Any success in the talent shows?
Yes, I was a very cute kid on stage. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, that's a good start. What did you study, and did you have a clear goal in mind at the time when you were doing your studies?
Oh my God, I never had a clear goal in mind. That's one thing. Even today, if you ask me, I feel like I'm still discovering myself and still trying to sort of see what the next move and next step will be. So the minute I figured out that I did not want to be a doctor, because that was maybe the only clear goal I sort of had at one point. Once that was out the door, I never really had a clear goal. So it was always a question of how can I be strategic in my different choices. So I studied law because I felt like law was a good foundation to have. Okay. And they would lead me somewhere, but I did not know where. So, yeah.
Okay. And who were your inspiration figures when you were younger? Your role models? It could be with people you know or some celebrities out there.
You know what? As cliche as it may sound, it was my parents, both my parents. So my father is a doctor. My mother was a kindergarten teacher. They both immigrated here from Haiti at different times. But I've always been very inspired by their drive, both of them, and the sacrifices they made for all of us to live the privileged life that we were fortunate enough to have growing up. And so whenever the going gets tough or, anything, I think about my parents and everything that they went through. And then I think to myself, yeah, no, there's nothing that I can't achieve and I need to, push forward. So, of course, there's lots of celebrities out there that I look up to. But the main thing is we're a very close-knit family. So it's my parents and then it's my brothers and sisters. So I'm the baby of the family. So I came in with a bunch of adults around me that I could look up to and I still look up to today. So it's really the main thing. That's what centers me and grounds me.
Okay, very, very complete. Now we'll dig into your career path. So you mentioned your studies in law. How did your career start? What was your first job?
Um, my first job. So I created my first
Okay.
job. There you go. So after I did my, when you go to law school and you choose to go to bar school after to pass the bar,
Yeah.
you once you pass the bar exam, you have to do an internship,
Okay.
a 6-month internship. So that was quote unquote my first legal job. I did that in criminal law with a lawyer that was practicing on her own. I was her very first intern. And so it was interesting. It was at that point that I really saw how you can run your own business as a lawyer. You know, she was doing different networking events and she was really involving me in everything because it was basically only me and her. But after that, once my internship was done, I wasn't sure I wanted to continue the criminal law route. So I took a little break. I'm skipping a few steps in my career path now to lead you to my first job that I told you I created.
Mm-hmm.
At one point when I wasn't really seeing myself in the traditional legal field, right? It wasn't clear to me exactly what I wanted to do, but I would apply to jobs just to apply to make sure I was doing, you know, the job, the work that I needed to do to get a job, but I wasn't inspired at all. And so at one point I just decided, you know what? I'm just gonna create my own, you know, I'm gonna start on my own. And so I started my own little boutique law firm, if I may say.
Okay.
And I did, you know, and I had a few mentors. The lawyer that I was working for when I was an intern, she was still like we kept contact, so I could reach out to her for any questions. I had a whole bunch of other lawyers in different fields because I thought to myself, I don't know what I want to do, but I should figure it out by practicing.
Okay.
So yeah, I rented an office space. I created a little logo on Vistaprint, printed out business cards. And that's when it all started.
Okay. How old were you when you created that for
I
yourself?
was 23, I
Wow.
believe.
Okay. That sounds impressive.
Looking back, I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
what was I thinking?
Impressive still. So now from that point in time, can you walk us through the main steps of your career that led from that point to what you're doing today? And what were the key turning points that made your career what it is today?
Okay, so bear with me, a lot of steps.
Perfect.
Right? So that practice was called Prosper Avocat, very simply. So in English, it's my last name and lawyer, basically. It was a little green logo, anyways. I was very proud of it. And I actually rented an office space in a business center called Regis on the South Shore in Brossard because my friend who was a notary, that's what she did. She did that. She launched her own business a year before, and I would go visit her sometimes. So I rented my office space right across the hall from hers so that I had like a friend and a colleague sort of to do that. So I ran that solo practice for about 8 months. It wasn't going very well in the sense that I chose to go that route to figure out what I wanted to do, right?
Okay.
And as I was going, I was like, oh my God, I do not see myself doing any of this moving forward. So I was starting to be a little bit stressed out, right? You take that big risk, you rent an office, you do all of that. And then 8 months in, one of my good friends from Cégep, who also went to law school, and we started talking, and both of us had really an interest in startups and helping business dreams come true and structuring the legal side. So we started talking and brainstorming, and she told me, you know, we should partner up and build something together, right? Like you're slowly dying there in your solo practice. I'm also looking for myself in this field. Let's create our own thing and do it right. And that really energized me because in the short 8 months that I was working solo, I did a few business law. I felt like I was part of something when I was helping structure businesses and think about different contracts and all of that. So that's when Propulsio 360 was born. That's the name of the business that we co-founded. That still exists today, and I'm still in very good terms. She's still a
Wow.
very good friend of mine. We've been friends since we were 16 years old. And so that's when I went from Prosper Avocat to Propulsio 360. And we built that. We rent an office space in Saint Henry at the time. And then, yeah, that's really where I felt like I developed myself professionally in different ways, because it was a lot of networking. It was building building a brand, also building a team, and making us sort of known in the startup ecosystem. That was around 2015 when the startup ecosystem in Montreal was really booming. So we did that, and that was an amazing journey. So that's for the legal side of things.
Okay. How about the rest? Because you did not end there, did you?
No.
Yeah.
Definitely not. So yeah, so we did that. I would say I stayed for about 3 years within Propulsio. We grew the business. We started to be a little bit known in the smaller, younger firms that would offer services on a fixed rate basis. And we were really a one-stop shop for your business. We would offer legal services and business consulting. So we had a business consultant also working with us, helping the entrepreneurs that were, for example, looking for financing, help them structure their financial projections and so on. But then after 3 years, the feeling of law is not the end, it's a means to an end, sort of caught up with me.
Okay.
And we weren't at the stage where I could entirely focus on business development within our firm, within our company. I still needed to be one of the quote unquote senior lawyers. We were still very young, and the quote unquote junior lawyers that we hired were maybe 2 or 3 years younger than us or anything. And I had lots of fun meeting with clients and strategizing with them, right?
Okay.
Oh, what's your business idea? Did you think about this, and that? Did you think about partnering with so and so and so on? And then when the clients would leave and I would be left with the legal work or, the contract drafting or reviewing, I started to really feel dead inside. Yeah. And so that's when I started thinking about what's next for me. And it was a tough transition because we gave everything for it was our baby for this firm, right? We were starting out doing blood, sweat, and tears. We were a startup helping other startups too, trying to do things differently. So it was kind of tough to come to the conclusion that I needed to leave. So it took me about a year to come to terms with that idea. And I played around with different ways that I could stay within, the firm and still be happy. Right now, if I stay, I feel like it's going to be a burden both for you, for my business partner, for the company, and for the team. And it's not a good thing. I need to take a step back, and I need to figure out what's next for me. And I was about 25 or 26 at that point.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Feels like you had 20 years of career, but not yet.
And that's when I took a step back and I jumped. And luckily, right, I'm very grateful I was still living at my parents'. I didn't have any real responsibilities, so I could take on that extra risk of just closing the door to that business and then figuring out what's next. And so, yeah, so after that, it was a lot of soul searching, a lot of meeting with, I had built a very strong network through Repulsio. So I met with a whole bunch of people just to talk about what they're doing, also talk about what I'm trying to achieve, and help me also rebrand myself, because I was a lawyer and I was a partner at Propulsio 360 that was everywhere, right? So trying to change that and make people see me differently was a process in itself too. And through that, I got the opportunity to become a headhunter. And you're probably thinking, what? What's the link?
How do you make the shift?
Yeah. So Basically, I wasn't able to identify a specific role I was looking to do, but I was able to identify elements that I needed in my next job, right? So I needed to be able to continue sort of growing my network. I'm a people person, understanding that. I like understanding how businesses work and what they need. And I like to be involved in different projects at the same time. And so when I met with a headhunter that I had met through Propulsio, I met with her thinking, she's a headhunter. It's good for her to know that I'm on the market, and maybe she'll be able to see me differently and position me differently if she has a client that has a need. So we met, we started talking, I started explaining what I was looking for. And she told me, oh, you know what? Actually, we're looking for an extra headhunter within our firm. Do you think it could be interesting? And at first I was like, not so sure. And then we started talking and she explained a little bit more what it is, the way that firm works. And it was more so like every headhunter is a solo entrepreneur sort of thing under the same umbrella with the resources. There's the analytical side that I like of, you meet with the client, you understand their needs, and then you try to find the right fit within a pool of candidates that you also meet. And then sometimes it's about showing the value of a candidate that the company never probably would have thought of before, and somebody that's really aligned with what they want. And then you speak with them, you make the connection, and then you see if it works. And so I started doing that, and it was great. I did that for a year. It was great in the sense that I was working on recruiting lawyers, because since I was a lawyer, that was a very strong expertise for the company I was working for at the time. But I really made it a point. I'm like, if you only give me lawyer roles to recruit for, I'm not like, that's not what I want. I want to be doing other things too. And so I did, I did positions in marketing, in business development, and so on. So it helped me also see how I could position myself. What are the things to say? What are the needs also of the business world here? So it was interesting for a year, but after a year, I felt like it was also time to move on to something. I knew I wasn't going to be a headhunter for my entire life. And then I made the shift. I went to work for Montreal International, which is Montreal's economic development agency. And that was more aligned with, I went back into more of the corporate world directly per se, and I was working in the foreign investment attraction department. So basically it's selling Montreal to companies internationally for them to come here, hire talent, open subsidiaries here, and benefit from our great cost of living and so on. So that was the move that I made, but it was a great experience, great organization. And it was interesting to meet all these different companies and really use the key selling points of Montreal, the key industries that we're good at here in Quebec, understanding the business landscape of AI and intelligent transportation and all of that, understanding that, being able to sell that to different companies, invite them here to Montreal, make them visit potential office spaces, make them see what potential tax credits they'd be eligible for, really like the whole gamut. So that was very interesting. And then after that, after about 2 years, and once again, COVID changed the way we worked at Montreal International, started feeling that itch again to maybe move on to something new. And that's when I saw the opportunity at Futurpreneur. Futurpreneur that I knew. I used to refer clients to Futurpreneur when I was at Propulsio 360, because it's a great way to access early financing. You get up to $60,000, and you can only, it can be based on a business plan and cash flow projections. Whereas if you go to the bank with only a business plan, chances are you're not going to get funded. So when I saw the opportunity and they were looking for a director for their Black Entrepreneur Startup Program, I was like, whoa, this is so aligned. Like this is too good to be true. Mm-hmm. And so anyways, I investigated, and then anyways, one thing led to another, and I'm part of Futurepreneur now. It's been 3 years.
Did you only have the same role at Futurpreneurs since you entered?
Yes.
Okay, and how can you tell us the story of how you were like chosen for this specific role? Because it's very specific. I don't know if it exists anywhere else.
Yeah. So you know what? I saw the posting. Somebody posted it on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I applied. I basically just applied and went through the process and was hired. It was and it's the first time that I apply for a position and I get it. I normally, all the positions that I got before were through contacts first, right? Not only putting in my resume and waiting, it was always through people knowing me, meeting me, and understanding what I'm about, because my background is so eclectic. My everything that I did is so different that sometimes when you look at my resume and you look at the position I'm applying for, you don't really see the link until you speak to me. But luckily enough, for that role at Futurepreneur, it was, I applied not too long after I got called for the interview, and then I got the job. It was fairly quick and easy. And one thing that I forgot to mention in this very long monologue of me saying the different steps of my career is that I've always been very, very involved in the community. So whether it's through sitting on different boards or committees of different chambers of commerce and so on. So that's where I also developed a different skill set than my actual job. I always have something on the side that I'm doing, and all of the implications that I had were always related to the advancement of Black communities or the advancement of women in one way or another. So that's why I think when I applied for the position at Futurepreneur, both my career sort of path and my implications showed the value that I could bring in leading this new program that they were launching.
This sounds pretty dreamlike. This is pretty cool. Can you tell us a bit more about Futurepreneur? How does the entire organism work? How do they get the financing? All these things.
Yes. So Futurepreneur is a national nonprofit that receives funding both from the federal government and different provinces and the private sector as well. So, for example, the Black Entrepreneur Startup Program within Futurepreneur is funded by RBC.
Okay.
With
Which
additional
is a bank, national bank, just
the Royal Bank of Canada.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And with additional loan financing from BDC, Business Development Bank of Canada. So that's one thing. But we have our core program. We have a side hustle program. So we call them programs, but they're essentially different offerings within the organization. That's always a loan component and a mentorship component, because every entrepreneur that goes through our process and receives a loan gets matched with a mentor. And they always go hand in hand. Never a loan without a mentor, never a mentor without a loan. And we focus on the 18 to 39 segment all over Canada.
Okay.
So we have different teams in different regions, and then we have programs that are national. We also have an Indigenous entrepreneur startup program.
Okay. And how can a startup access to these kind of programs? Is there a selection process? How does it work?
No. So, there's a selection process in the sense that not everybody receives a loan, but the way we work is that we receive requests on a rolling basis. So there's no, okay, this date you have to submit and then it's closed and then there's no more funding. It's entrepreneurs come to us all day, every day at any stage. And then our team sort of guides them through the process of what we need from them. So, and they can work on it as much as as much as needed until they receive the funding if they respect the different eligibility criteria. So it's basically going on our website, filling out our form, and being contacted by somebody from our team to explain the process, show the different documents we need, and start working through that. So it's really, I feel like if you and your business and your business partners, you respect the different eligibility criteria, you can receive a loan from Futurepreneur to launch and succeed.
Okay, that's good to hear for some startups. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So you mentioned your involvement into the communities, the Black communities, etc. Can you explain how important it is to support such communities or minorities into the entrepreneurship process?
It's so important. Entrepreneurship can be very lonely. Entrepreneurship is very scary. When we think about entrepreneurship too, it's a roller coaster of emotions, and you need support. You need help to be able to push through those different highs and lows, and difficulties. You need inspiration to be able to push forward too. I think that we're very lucky here in Canada, and I would say even in Quebec specifically, to have a very, very strong and solid ecosystem. There's so many different incubators or programs, specific, targeted, industry specific, or for women, or anything that helps, provide that support, or co-development groups and so on, that are necessary for entrepreneurs to be able to thrive, because it's not an easy road. So and they're also the basis of our economy, right? So small businesses is the basis of our economy here in Canada. So it's important to provide support and the right resources to them, so that they can scale, and we can build, the Quebec Inc. of tomorrow, if I may say, or the Canada Inc. of tomorrow. So
Perfect. And what is the most important project that you've worked on so far at Futurpreneurs?
that's a good question. I would say building the whole program.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, well, no, let me correct that. I didn't. So when I started at Futurepreneur, so my first day was March 29th, and the official launch date of the program was March 24th.
Okay.
And the launch date of the program meant that Futurepreneur and RBC had been meeting for eight months, close to a year before that, to negotiate and talk about the structure of the program and how it would be different. Because that's one thing that was also important to me is, I know Futurepreneur does a great job. Now, how is this Black Entrepreneur Starter Program any different, and how is it really addressing barriers faced by young Black entrepreneurs? And I was happy to see that in their process, they really analyzed, okay, how do entrepreneurs go through a process? What are the specific barriers that are faced by Black entrepreneurs? How can we make the proper tweaks? So that was done. But when it was my first day, we didn't have a team, we didn't have a strategy, we didn't have, for just building awareness for the program and so on. So that was very interesting for me to be an intrapreneur, right, within the organization, because that's what I enjoy doing, building things from scratch. But then I had all the resources needed, right? I had the proper funding. I had the support. I had the notoriety of the organization. And so that's how I built the team, started doing different things, making sure that we were well known around Canada, because it was something entirely new. So to me, everything that I've built with the team in the past 3 years is, I would say, my biggest achievement within my time at Futurepreneur. It's amazing to be now taking a step back, and it's somebody from our team that is taking over, that is now the director of that program. So it's really nice to see the evolution of it all, and how it's going to continue to have success in the coming years.
Okay. Do you know how many people benefited from the program so far?
Yes, so we are. So I'm not sure when this will air, the numbers will probably not be good anymore. They'll be much higher. But right now, since launch, so we launched in March of 2021.
Okay.
So since launch, we helped over 390 Black entrepreneurs in Canada launch their businesses.
Okay, that's pretty solid so far. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
What is the most difficult situation you ever had to handle in your career? And do you have any tips of how to get out of it?
I think there are multiple ways to answer this question, but I would say on the being a manager side, like a people manager, I think the most difficult thing is it's needed, but when you have to give negative feedback, I think it's challenging to find the balance with providing the right support, because I want everybody to succeed and to be happy within their role. But I think the biggest learning was, I have very, very high standards for myself and for my work, but I can't expect everybody to have the same standards as me. And that was It wasn't as apparent when I was a manager within Propulsio, right? The firm that I co-founded. Because I didn't really, there were a few situations there, but I don't know, it was different than when you work within a, big organization, you have a team, and there's a whole process of evaluating them. I think I struggled a little bit with addressing an employee that was underperforming. Luckily, the employee was underperforming but was very motivated. So we found ways, and I found ways in also communicating in an effective way so that you're not crushing the employee's soul, but you're also making sure they understand that there needs to be a shift in the way they work, or else things might not go in the right direction. So that's a bit of a, we tend to forget the amount of time and energy it takes to be a good manager, and like and manage people's feelings and so on. So I would say that's yeah, a big learning. I'm still learning how to
Obviously, we
do it
all do,
all,
yeah.
but yeah.
Excellent. What are the most important skills you have acquired in your life/career?
I would say multitasking.
Okay.
And I know some people say, oh, multitasking is bad, it's not a good thing, but for me it works.
Uh-huh.
And the reason why I say that, and maybe multitasking is not exactly the right word, but what has helped me a lot throughout my career is the fact that I was never only focused on one thing, and that I always had different, whether it's implications or opportunities on the side. Not to say that I was not focused on, my main job and my main role, but I doing all these other things on the side allowed me to develop so many new skills. I'm going to give you an example. When I first joined Futurpreneur, like I said, the program was just launched. So there were so many media opportunities that came to promote the program through the PR firm. And I had zero problem week one not having a team, just joining Futurepreneur, doing TV interviews and interviews for articles to promote the program. And that's because somehow in the very long career path that I told you about, I didn't mention, but I was doing on the side, I was really interested in media and TV. So I was doing on the side for a community channel here in Montreal called Ma TV. And I was doing interviews on local news in Montreal. So I was doing TV interviews here and there. And so I became super comfortable in front of the camera. And that, who would have known, right? I was doing that on the side, not related at all to, I was working at Montreal International at the time. So no link at all with that, but I was doing that because I enjoyed it. And you see, it served me very well when I joined Futurepreneur and all the media opportunities that came. I needed zero media training, and it was great exposure for the program. So yeah, definitely. So maybe multitasking is not the exact right term, but it's staying true to myself and not saying, oh, I need to fit in this case. I'm working in this field, so I can't be doing XYZ. No, I never stopped myself in that way, and it's always been very, very helpful.
Okay, excellent. And so you seem to be very clear about your own personality. You seem to know yourself very well. How do you think your coworkers perceive you, and how would they describe you? And do you think this perception could have changed all throughout the years?
It's funny because I've now that I was transitioning sort of out of the role for the next year to focus on my next new project, my baby girl that's coming. I was training the person replacing me, so she was shadowing me and everything. And it was funny. We were also close friends, and we had worked together before. And she made so many funny comments about the way I work and I operate that I didn't realize, right? So she was telling me, "Oh my God, like, you go so fast, and you like I don't, like, I see your mind spinning, and I see that you're in this meeting but you're doing this other thing, but I know that you're still focused on this meeting." And once again, I'm not saying you should be doing other things when you leave, but all this to say that I think I'm perceived as a high achiever, quick, somebody that's always on the go. and that's always trying to make the best out of everything. Well, that's how she perceived me. This happened a few weeks ago. But it was funny because I'm always go, go, go. I'm a very proactive person. I don't like just staying and waiting and looking. So I'm always trying to find the next thing and how we can do this better. And my mind is always, 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 always spinning. It served me. It still serves me so far. So we'll see. But you have to know yourself, right? First, I'm not saying it's the right way to operate. But no, I think that's how I'm perceived now. It might have, and I think no, I think it's always along those lines. If I think about the whole my whole very eclectic career path, I think everybody could say something along those lines as well.
Okay, perfect. And so you've been a manager, as you said. You've also been a recruiter. So because of these two things, I want to ask, in your opinion, what's an ideal employee, and how do you notice high potential in employees?
An ideal employee is somebody that is open to feedback. Somebody that is humble enough to say when they don't understand and ask for help. Somebody that is proactive and that is resourceful, and somebody that's a team player. Yeah, that's an ideal employee to me. How I notice high potential basically is when I see all these elements in an employee, and also when it comes to a point where the employee comes to me automatically with solutions or ideas and somewhat of a structure around how that idea could be made possible. That's when I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. So let's try to, let's work and help that employee, get even better, and they have a high potential there. There are others that aren't really at that level yet, but I try to get them there, right? But yeah, that's how I see high potential.
Excellent. And now, taking a little step back, now that you've seen a lot of things within your career, what do you think is the most important thing you've learned in school?
That's a good one. Most important thing I learned in school. You know what? I'm gonna stick to the analytical skills and the thorough understanding of everything that I learned in law school. Law school was always that, right? And I remember even the bar exam, the thing that the teachers would tell us all the time is make sure you read the question entirely, because sometimes there's this little word in the question that changes everything, and then your answer is going to to change. And sitting down and reading a whole situation, making sure you understand and you pull out all the different elements and what articles fit with them and so on. That's something that truly serves me today. Not necessarily the article linked to the situation, it's the way I extract information from a situation, the way I analyze and I go through. So that's extremely useful in everything that I do. So I would say that's that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Okay, very good. Now we'll move on to the last section of this interview, looking at your broader vision and reflection about your career and everything surrounding it. So we touched a bit about this before. You have a background in law, you have experience in HR, you've done some project management for diverse companies, and you've been involved in promoting diversity in the workplace. And now with Futurpreneurs, is it safe to say that you created a dream job for yourself?
I would say yes. I would say that the dream, I didn't create it because, like I said, it
You
was,
found it at
I
least.
found it. Yes. And yes, I have to agree with that. I've been, the past 3 years have been transformative for me in my career. And it's where I felt the most, that I flourished the most, I would say. So yes, this is my dream job so far. And I say so far because that's the way I roll, right? It's been 3 years. I'm not saying I'm taking this break now, but I'm not saying I'm leaving, not at all. I'm very, very happy where I'm at, and there's so much more to be done with our program, but I also know myself and
Mm-hmm.
how I operate. So we don't know, 5 years down the line where I'll be and what I'll be doing. But definitely right now it's pretty dreamy. Yes.
Okay. And so you'll be back with Futurpreneur after your maternity leave.
Yes, for now, yes.
Excellent.
It's the beginning of my maternity leave, so
Yeah.
we'll see. But yes, no, just kidding.
Perfect. And so, still on the reality of entrepreneurs, we know you touched a bit on it. It's a very difficult process in general. And we know that most entrepreneurs, startups fail within the first 5 years, as we say. What do you think are the most common traits of successful startups?
I would say knowing your numbers.
Okay.
Yes, knowing your numbers, looking at your numbers, and yes, there's a part of intuition in making strategic decisions for your business, but your numbers speak very loudly and tell a story that you need to know and understand. And I think that that's a big part of a lot of entrepreneurs launching are very good at the ideas and how they plan on executing their idea and resolving the issue that they're trying to resolve with their service or product. But then on the numbers side, that's always when it gets difficult to do your projections and to look at them and so on. And a lot of entrepreneurs get attached to their idea and attached to whatever it is that their MVP and what they put out. And they don't focus enough on the issue that they're trying to solve and the response from the clients. So it's a mix of that. It's making sure you listen to your audience. When you say you got to launch fast to test and you adjust as you go, that's key. But then you also really, really need to look at your numbers. And we stress that a lot at Futurpreneur because a lot of our entrepreneurs struggle with that piece, the numbers and looking at them, because that's when you're going to be able to see how you can scale, how you can hire, people to help you focus on what you're actually good at, what are your strengths, and then to help the business grow.
Okay, excellent. Now, last question of this section. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received, and would you give the same piece of advice to your 20-year-old self?
Honestly, the best piece of advice that I've ever received was to always be proactive. And that's actually something my brother would always tell me when I was younger, and especially when I was at that point in Cégep where I was completely torn because I came into school thinking I was going to be a doctor, and one semester in, I knew I didn't want to be a doctor, and I had no idea what was going to happen after. I was 16 years old. I was somewhat depressed, because that's your only focus, and then you have to figure out what life is. Little did I know that so many things were going to happen afterwards. But it's really at that point that my brother kept on reminding me, you know what, you got to stay proactive. You got to stay proactive, meaning keep on searching for what could be interesting, connect with people, read up on things, do things, never stay in a situation, there's always a way out. And that has helped me tremendously throughout my career. And it would definitely be an advice that I was already given that advice, but I would give my 20-year-old self, or say my 20-year-old daughter. That's definitely a big thing in my mind.
Perfect. Now we'll move on to the last few questions of this interview. Number one, how would you like to be remembered by your coworkers once your career ends? Coworkers, collaborators.
You know what? I really pride myself on my leadership, if I may say. The biggest thing for me in sort of leaving my role at Futurpreneur for the year was the team dynamic that we built. And of course, I mean, when I say my leadership, I'm not trying to be conceited here or anything, but it's also the team members created that dynamic, and we built an amazing team with, we're very we have a great dynamic. Everybody feels like they can speak their mind, and they feel very open with me, and that's something that I'm very happy about, because I'm a very transparent person, and I like to create safe spaces for whether it's my friends, my family, but like my teammates. So I definitely want to be remembered as someone who truly cares about the team and the work that's being done, and making sure that the team evolves and becomes whoever they want to become, right? Yeah, that's one thing I definitely want to keep doing and keep being perceived as.
Excellent. If you could have a private meeting with someone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Okay, so many possible answers here. But I'm going to, since we're talking about business and entrepreneurship, I think I would like to sit down with Madam C.J. Walker. She was the first Black women millionaire in the U.S. And she created hair products. So she faced a situation where she was losing her hair and so on, and she created products and built this whole strategy around how to sell them to other Black women. And she was definitely a trailblazer for Black hair care and so on. So I would be very curious to sit down with her and pick her brain on how it all happened, especially at a time where Black individuals were still struggling for their rights, and there were still lots of issues there. And she found a way to become the first Black woman millionaire. So I definitely love to speak with her.
Excellent. If she ever hears this, well, we never know. Last question of this interview: what can we wish you for the future?
You know what? I would say health, happiness, and continued success.
Excellent. Way to go. Mona Lisa, thank you so very much for being with us today. This was Mona Lisa Prosper on Business Minds.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
C'était correct? C'est bizarre? Non?
C'est bon?
Non, c'était bon, ouais.
Ouais? Ok.
Ouais.
Qu'est-ce qui t'a paru bizarre?
Non, mais j'étais comme... Je me suis...
Tu peux la refaire si tu veux. Là.
Mais c'est ça que tu m'as dit de dire, hein?
Ouais, c'était bien ça.
Exactement.
Juste que je pense qu'il y a eu comme t'as eu une hésitation.
Oui,
Ouais.
j'étais comme...
Mais c'était ça, c'est exactement ça.
Ok, je vais le
Tu
refaire.
refais-le.
Ok.